I'm JORDIS Holmes, and today I'll be interviewing Miss Karen Brown.
Good afternoon, Jordis. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Thank you for coming. It's such a pleasure to interview you today.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. So what are we going to talk about today?
Today we'll be talking about Miss Nina Simone. So the past, February, we did the tribute to Miss Nina Simone for her birthday, I believe.
Yes, it was the day after her birthday.
Yes, yeah. And so I have the pleasure to interview you for after the performance.
Perfect.
Yes, so let's move along. So the first question is, how did you prepare for the Nina Simone tribute, and how did it affect your life?
So I was Baruti, who is the creative director and the artist who created 4 large-size paintings to represent these 4 women in the song Nina Simone, said to talk with me last year, soon after I arrived and returned back to Augusta, to say that he was interested in doing this project, to talk about project, and he wanted me to dance. And that was kind of, he says, I'm going to create four pictures, 4 pieces of artwork, these gigantic pieces. And he didn't really relate it to Nina Simone at the time. So then months later, he calls us all together and says, talks about how he wanted to use this artistic piece, performance art, to raise the awareness of the mental health issues that were prevalent in the Black community.
Yes.
Yeah, right? And so I started working, once he gave me the name of the song and the concept, which was that the performance art would be using the music of the song, The 4 Women. Then I talked with the choreographer whom I had observed work and watched his work, and he created work on me when I lived in Philadelphia, and I knew I wanted to go through that process again with him. And it basically starts out with thinking about, so we took the theme, which was bipolar, because Baruti was able to discover that Nina Simone was bipolar. And so we took that thing. He says, when you hear those words, this is how we started in his living room in North Philly. And I had to come up with 5 vocabulary words that made me think about mental illness and bipolar in any kind of way that I could relate to it. Just what it made me think of. And from those words, we went into real life experiences that I had and identified them as being identified those experiences as matching the words. Like, what has happened to you in your life that makes you think of this word? And then we would he would watch how my body would react to the word and do the blood memory, as Alvin Ailey talks about, of that experience, and then we create a movement out of that. That really was so funny and so that's how I prepared for the work. I worked with him 3 or 4 times in Philadelphia when I was there during the International Association of Blacks in Dance Conference.
Yes.
And then we worked on FaceTime over the internet from the time between January and the performance, which was the last weekend, second to the last weekend in February.
Yes.
So I would be at studio space at the Y. I worked in my house. I worked at the Boys and Girls Club over on Division Street here in Augusta, and worked down at Humanitree, just in the space, putting the piece together.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Very wonderful.
That's pretty awesome. And of course now with the COVID-19 pandemic and the way that all of our lives are changing, I mean, I've been learning choreography like that for the last 2 years. Been teaching online for the last 3 years. So it's kind of great how the world has caught up and how that's really becoming the new norm now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So next question.
Yes,
what's
ma'am.
your favorite Nina Simone song and why?
I'd have to, of course, now it's the 4 Women, just because of the process that I've just gone through with Niki Harris, who sang the song in its entirety, and Karen Gordon, our individual rehearsals really kind of bonded us around the work that we were going to present, and just the deep exploration and what that meant, and their experiences and blood memories about situations that are depicted in the song, the conversations that we had about that, and the way we approached the work, the art, was hugely important. I really feel like I grew tremendously as an artist working on this project. I'll be forever grateful for the opportunity that I've had and the work that was produced and the friendships that have come about because of it.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. I really like the dancing, the singing, the playing. It was all wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. Next question. How has she impacted your life with her talent and civil rights?
Well, I know I certainly can relate to her, excuse me, and some of the things that she dealt with, particularly about their skin color and the colorism that existed and being segregated against, certainly the time period that she grew up in, and I love the fact that she was a civil rights activist. And I feel like in my own way, growing up in Augusta, Georgia, I have been that as well. I've been the first of almost everything I've been a part of since I was a little girl. And it takes a toll on you, on your spirit, to survive and thrive. It takes a great support system, which I've always had from my family, and then my own mental fortitude to be able to understand human behavior, and realize that everybody is always just trying to do the best that they can. It's just if they can get into your head and have you believe the things that they say you can't do, then, really that's, I feel like you have some responsibility in allowing that to happen.
Yes.
And then just the way that she impacted me, I really loved. There was a parallel in my life when one of the times, so in the beginning of the documentary or the piece that we did at Humanitree, I knew at some point in the dance I was going to stop dancing and tell somebody to sit down. Now, I'm glad that it happened in the beginning of the performance, right? But I was mimicking something that happened to her in a live performance where she said that her teacher had said to her, you don't, and I don't know if I'll quote it exactly, but the idea is you don't start playing or start performing until the audience is prepared to hear you, and you don't start playing until you're prepared to perform or play.
Ooh, so that's great.
Some of the ways that we were taught at the Dance Theater of Harlem, when we took class and it was time for us to go across the floor, we were taught that we were entering the stage to do our combination across, which could have been a variation. And that the way that you come onto the stage and set up to prepare for whatever it is important, and it's what you will do on stage as well. And so that parallel idea about going when you're ready and when the audience is ready. She added another level for me, an up level, but about going when the audience is ready. Sit down and get yourself still. Are we all ready now? Kind of empowering me that was okay. Now, I have some people who, in my life, who think that that's a part. They can see very clearly how that is a part of who I am, about being orderly and people sitting down. And one of my friends said, I liked it, except I didn't like when you told that person to sit down. I thought that was rude. I was like, it was a part of the show.
I was like, who's standing up? Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, so, yeah, I would say that's how she impacted me. I'm certainly, the work that I did in preparing for the role and the understanding of who she is as an artist that I learned from the other artists who participated in the program with me, who also enriched my life, has made me curious to want to know more about her.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Next question. What song would you think would impact a younger generation?
I don't know her repertoire well enough to make a recommendation. I know that there were young people in the audience during our performance who were very moved by not only by the performances, but also by the feedback that the mental health clinicians were giving between each of the 4 acts that went through the full run of the song. And so we know that we are all aware of evidence of mental health issues in our communities.
Yes.
But often we are not aware of resources to help, to assist. And so I'm really proud of one of the components of the show, which was to have a Q&A with the audience members and the mental health clinicians after the presentation. And it seemed like people were more open to speaking about these issues, whereas in some communities they are taboo.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree.
Mm-hmm.
Next question. Before the tribute, did you know the Nina Simone song "For Women"?
Yes, I did know it. And an interesting thing there's a club in Augusta called The Studio, a neighborhood bar. It's one of the co-owners was a classmate of mine, and lots of Augustans who love live jazz, because on Wednesday nights they have live jazz from 8 to 10, and then of course the whole culture of the club changes to people who are going to come out at 10 o'clock. And then right about 1, it changes, or 12, it changes to another set who's just going to be, bar hopping or whatever. So one night Karen Gordon was down, and Nikki Harris down, and Karen popped up to me and said, "Hey, I want to play around with this song. You want to do it with me?" And I said, she says, "I know maybe I shouldn't ask you, but just let me know." And I was like, "Absolutely, I am ready. Let's do it." And we did Before Women. And so I just made up something to the beat that Karen was playing, and then Niki was singing, and I went all around the entire club throughout this whole song, right? And so when it came time that was, we were going to start to work on the piece for Baruti, I was like, bet, this is fabulous.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's just divine order.
All right.
Yeah.
How did you put your own uniqueness and artistry in your piece?
Yeah, I think it comes up, like I was saying in the beginning, bringing my own real life experiences into the language. Ooh, I missed the camera. I put my foot up on the ladder. Bringing my my personal experiences that paralleled experiences, perhaps, that Nina Simone was experiencing. The physical abuse, the uncertainty, the powerlessness, the poverty, and then being taken advantage of because of, your lack. And thinking about situations where I either observed that or where it happened to me, particularly around the skin color piece and the being disempowered, right? Those transferable situations that happen. Maybe it's not the same experience, but it's the same impact. So that I was able to integrate those real feelings that came up inside the dance. Yeah, one of the things I'll say that I thought was curious, and it was curious for me, and it was curious to Niki as well. So when she and I got together, she asked me, "Okay, so we can pull 2." She says, "Well, let's put 2 or 3 anchors in the song, And I'll know either to slow down or speed up if you're not there at these touch points. So what are you doing on this verse? And I said, girl, I don't know. Because I'm not really listening to the song. I am telling my story. And as we go and as I get to know you and how you're going to feed off of me and I'm going to feed off of you, then maybe there are going to be some touch points where I'm going to be sure that I hit that. There certainly won't be 3. And I'm going to be listening to you when you're singing so that I'll know where I am by your, the energy in your voice as you interpret that song, that story by song, that I'm going to be interpreting by dance and movement, and that Karen is going to be interpreting by sound, and all 3 of us are coming together to make the visual that the audience sees. And we're so in sync about the story because we understand the storyline through our conversations and the shared experiences.
And it did come together so gracefully. It was an amazing show.
Can you say that again? Because just at the last part of it, your voice became clearer.
Oh, okay. It came together so gracefully. The way I intertwined as 3, it was so amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I was very pleased. I was pleased with the audience response. I think that the piece it's very powerful and that it could have more legs. It could grow and travel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Next and last question. What way did you grow as an artist?
Yeah, I think I answered that a little bit earlier. Basically, when I said that looking at, number one, just the process of putting the piece, the choreography together. Mm-hmm. So as a ballerina, there's 2 ways that you do it. You're going to, but in all of them, very rarely do you actually participate before you get into the studio. Mm-hmm. Right? It's about you're either relearning, something's being restaged that's already been choreographed that has very specific steps. Or a choreographer has the steps and ideas in their head and they're going to come in my experience, they're going to come in and put this on you, and then the way that you do it is going to inform the end result, the end product. But the choreographer is coming with the idea. This time, movement came from my ideas about what these words meant or mean based on my interpretation of the song. I'm also being fueled by, this came later. Then Zane, the choreographer, Baruti, is sharing the paintings with us as he is creating them, and only us. So he shares it with me, and then I share it with the choreographer. And as the choreographer is now shaping and molding my ideas about what these steps mean, he now has the picture of what Aunt Sarah looks like to Baruti. And how do I reflect all of her anguish and all of her passion and her who she is as a person. And when he shows us that, then Zane goes, ah. And then he's into Baruti's head. Zane's into my head. I'm into Baruti's head. The 3 of us are putting together this dance that now then goes to the musicians. So it was really, just as an artist, it helped me to, as a way to think about how do you begin choreography, which has been I think the next thing that I'd like to master in my field, because I've not done big ballets and choreographed. I'm great at restaging, but I haven't choreographed anything that on professional dancers. So I'm looking forward to being able to do that.
I'm looking looking forward for you to do that too.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, this is the end of our interview. Thank you, Miss Karen Brown. It was such a pleasure interviewing you.
Thank you so much, Jordis. I appreciate it. Take good care.
All right, you too.
Bye-bye.